Goodbye, Mom. 4:08 a.m. is what my digital clock read. I had gone to bed exhausted and emotionally drained. Why had I awoken so abruptly at this early hour? The afternoon before, Dad had called me. Mom was back in the hospital. She'd been living with Parkinson's disease for years. But this time, I just knew something was different. I raced to the hospital, where my worst fears were confirmed. Mom was dying. The severity of her Parkinson's had masked the symptoms of pancreatic cancer. Stage 4. There was nothing any of the doctors could do. Mom lay comatose in the hospital, surrounded by family members. We sat with her for hours. After midnight, a nurse entered the room. She explained that Mom would likely never regain consciousness. That she could pass away in a few hours of a few days. She encouraged us to go home and get some rest. I listened and went home. But now, lying in bed, I wished I were with Mom. Then I felt it. An overwhelming feeling of love and warmth washed over me. Mom's presence. I fought to stay awake but found myself slipping back into sleep. "Goodbye, Mom," I whispered. The next thing I knew, I was jolted awake by the phone ringing. It was my aunt. She had called to tell me Mom had passed away earlier that morning. When exactly? I asked. But I already knew the answer. In today's reading from Matthew 17 we are told that Moses, who died an earthly death over 1,400 years before the birth of Christ, and Elijah, who did not die an earthly death, but was taken up to heaven about 600 years before Christ, were seen speaking with him on Mount Tabor. Some would say there is no truth to the Transfiguration, it's just a myth. Children can often bring clarity to adults whose faith is lacking. A little girl was talking to her teacher about whales and how she had heard in Sunday school about how a whale had swallowed Jonah. The teacher said it was physically impossible for a whale to swallow a human because even though it was a very large mammal, its throat was very small. The little girl remained steadfast in her position and reiterated that indeed, a whale had swallowed Jonah. Irritated, the teacher again stated that a whale could not swallow a human, it was physically impossible. The little girl said, "I'm not sure how it happened, but when I get to heaven, I will ask Jonah." The teacher replied smugly, "What if Jonah isn't in heaven?" The little girl replied, "Then you can ask him." Matthew chapter 19 verse 26, Jesus looked at them and said, "For human beings this is impossible, but for God all things are possible."